There are many horse food products out on the market these days, and more we are seeing horse feeds that are named for improving your horse's health, or keeping your horse from getting sick, or maintaining your compromised animal. What do I mean by compromised animal? What we're talking about are horses who have developed hypothyroidism, or Cushing's, or insulin resistance, or diabetes, or whatever name we're putting on it. Laminitic horses who can no longer walk because their feet are so sore. And horses who have myelopathies, which is a nice name for their muscles don't work, but we don't really know why. All of these ailments are started primarily because the chemistry of the horse is not correct. We influence that chemistry in a lot of ways. Where we house our horses, how they're housed, what they do for a living, and more importantly, the chemicals that we put in them or that they gain from their environment. So, our goal with this talk is to educate you on some of the ways that your horse is exposed environmentally to some of these chemicals and what you can do to try to reduce that. First of all, many horses are housed in stalls or in paddocks where they're exposed to chemistry every day. The stall walls are usually made out of treated wood that contain arsenic. If your horse is chewing his stall walls, the arsenic can actually become part of his system. When it does, it blocks his thyroid and its ability to uptake nutrients and help the body with other hormone function. So that is one source for arsenic. Water is another source. And sometimes just the processing of horse feed can actually release arsenic within that food and make it now available to your animal. So we want to watch that part of the environment. Pesticides, such as fly sprays and bug repellents and ant killers, can also be a problem. These usually contain estrogen mimics, and those estrogen mimicking molecules, as they enter your system and your horse's system, degrade his metabolism. What do we mean by degrade? Again, they attach to receptor sites that are in the horse's system where it should have a different molecule like iodine or calcium or copper, and as those estrogens attach, there's no longer a place for the mineral to attach. So the horse can't use his minerals like he was intended and now exhibits symptoms of mineral deficiency. They may even do things like chew trees or wood or eat dirt because they're seeking that mineral even though it can't possibly do its job. So watching where we spray chemicals and how we apply them and how we expose our horses is important. Another source of of environmental toxicity, for lack of a better term, I usually like to use the word other elements that you don't need to make a horse, can actually come in the form of what's in that bag of food that you purchase for them. When we boil feeds to make them a certain shape, we actually transform the proteins from the omega-3s and omega-6s we want into things like omega-9 fatty acids. I'm sorry, I meant fatty acids, not proteins. But we also transform the proteins and inactivate the enzymes. What are enzymes? Enzymes are mostly vitamins. Elements that we call vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, are all enzymes that catalyze or begin chemical changes within the horse's body. But when we cook many of these, they change their function or ability, so they're no longer available to the animal. Some of the elements that end up in that bag of feed are also not helping. When we use the outer walls of some of the grains and some of the vegetables that get put in our foods, those outer walls have an awful lot of the pesticides and the herbicides that were used to help that plant be more productive. But when we feed those to our animal, again, we're feeding our animal estrogens that block those receptors and make it difficult for the right chemistry to occur within that horse's system. Many of these things include names you'll recognize: soybean hulls and other forage products are usually included in a food to add bulk and to help with digestion. However, they don't help with normal cellular metabolism. And if we degrade metabolism, we also impede digestion of regular food. So by looking for feeds that include meals and not high temperature cooked foods that have a certain shape, and foods that don't include sugars that change the pH of the GI tract, and looking for foods that have higher omega fatty acids and raw diets. By raw, I mean not cooked at a high temperature. We help our animals absorb their nutrients better. Most of our horses' feeds are what are called complete feeds. These feeds are mixed to include carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and vitamins and minerals. Unfortunately, in order to get a feed that is cost-effective for the manufacturer, the proteins they use aren't necessarily available to the horse. And they tend to include a lot of carbohydrates, and they may include vitamins and minerals that are or are not available to the horse when they digest it. Most of these feeds are also cooked. And so what happens is that changes the protein structure. So when those manufacturers increase the amount of protein and cook the food, we end up with incomplete protein structures and proteins that your horse is unable to digest. So if you increase the amount of food and therefore increasing the amount of protein your horse is getting, you're not really increasing the protein. You're increasing the carbohydrate amount that your horse is getting. And this is what makes him what people call hot or anxious and unpredictable.